You may be seated. This Honourable House now resumes its sitting. I wish to welcome all to the sitting of the Honourable House of Representatives for today, Tuesday, May 12, 2026. As always, it is an honour and privilege to do so. Today, we'll be hearing from the Minister of Health and Wellness, as well as the Member of Parliament from St. Andrew Western, who will be making their contribution to the sectoral debate. I wish to welcome the team from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Particularly, I'm seeing P.S. Errol Green to my right, and our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Besar Mackenzie. Hi, CMO. I think our Chief Technical Director is here as well. And Mr. Ian Stein is here from PAHO. I am helping Minister because I know he usually takes some time out of his presentation to greet and to welcome everyone from the WHO and from PAHO and from his ministry. He's not getting any extra time today. So welcome both to Jamaica. Welcome on behalf of the Ministry of Health and Wellness and our Minister of Health and Wellness to this sitting of Parliament today. I'm sure with such a full gallery, there are other members here, both from the constituencies of St. Catherine West Central and St. Andrew Western. Make them welcome. These and all others seated in the gallery, we'd like to welcome you to today's sitting. And for those joining us on the various social media platforms, PBCJ Live, all guests, welcome to the sitting. Call of the roll.
Mr. Clark. Here. Mr. Green. Here. Dr. Holness. Dr. Chang. Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bartlett. Ms. Grange. Dr. Tufton. Mr. Mackenzie. Mr. Montague. Mr. Vaz. Mr. Chuck. Mr. Charles Jr. Mr. Morgan. Ambassador Marks, Mr. Samuda, Dr. Wheatley, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Terry Long, Mr. Witter, Mrs. Dalrymple Filbert, Miss Morrison, Miss Lee, Mr. Donovan Williams, Mr. Main, Miss Crawford, Mr. Delroy Williams, Miss Hamilton, Mr. Sivright, Mr. Azan, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown Burke, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Ms. Burchell, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Cousins, Mr. Crawford, Ms. Daly, Dr. Dawes, Mr. Goulding, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Hales, Mr. Hines, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Ms. Jess, Mrs. Malahoo Ford, Mrs. Miller Bennett, Mr. Morris, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Newell, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Ms. Perkins, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Dr. Russell, Ms. Shaw, Mr. Smith, Mr. Vaz, and Mr. Warmington. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I do not often look up in the gallery and see wife of former Prime Minister, Dr. Eldamar Shearer. Special welcome to today's sitting. I see the Deputy Chair as well for the National Health Fund, former Member of Parliament, Mr. Michael Stern, to my left. And as always, it would appear that we are now often visited by the Senate. Welcome always, whether we refer to you or not, to the sitting of the House, and former Member of Parliament Sharon Hay Webster, who visits us frequently as well. I hope you enjoy today's sitting all. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I join in your welcome to all our visitors here today, especially the team from the Ministry of Health, who have really served us well over these years. Madam Speaker, we're going to suspend the agenda and go straight to public business. I know the Minister of Health is ready to go, and we will hear from him today as we continue our sectorial debate, and then we will take the Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Western. So, Madam Speaker, without further ado, could we allow the Minister of Health to start his sectorial presentation?
Members, the question is that we suspend the agenda and move straight to public business for the debate. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Let's make welcome to his feet the Minister of Health and Wellness. Members?
Madam Speaker, on behalf of Madam Speaker, permission to speak from a seat other than my own.
Permission granted, Minister.
And that's not a part of my time, please.
No, I looked up. Okay. Minister, I'm very serious about your time, okay? So, Minister, use your time very wisely.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, on behalf of my very hardworking Minister of State, Minister Crystal Lee, the Ministry of Health and Wellness fraternity, I want to just begin by paying tribute to a young man who have sat across from me today, very enthusiastically capturing the moments here in the Parliament. Very ambitious, very hardworking, very young, who tragically passed last week, Wednesday, Madam Speaker, at the University Hospital of the West Indies. Imru Khoury was very instrumental in my social media capture, my team, but also otherwise instrumental in building our nation through the Jamaica Labour Party and other efforts. And I just want to pay tribute to him and to his family and friends, Madam Speaker. May his soul rest in peace. Madam Speaker, today I greet you all with gratefulness and sincerity of purpose. This is my 11th sectorial presentation as Minister of Health and Wellness. I, Madam Speaker, have always tried to serve with humility, recognizing that while much has been achieved, there is much work in progress. A decade of evolving health challenges, Madam Speaker, creates for the ministry and the country moving targets of overcoming challenges, some seasonal, others systemic, others unexpected. Through it all, we have attempted to act, Madam Speaker, in the best interest of Jamaicans under the leadership of the Most Honorable Andrew Holness as Prime Minister, correcting and adjusting where we needed, accepting criticisms when they have been levied as a natural course of our democracy. I want to take this opportunity to thank our healthcare team on their tremendous efforts to protect Jamaicans in the weeks leading up to and in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Madam Speaker, this was a Category 5 storm, as we all know. Over 500,000 people in the 5 parishes directly impacted. Through the National Health Emergency Operations Center, we entertained very quickly over 600 international medical personnel, deployed an additional 500 healthcare workers into the zone, rescued some 96 Jamaicans from life-saving injuries. With the support of the JDF, 10 persons were airlifted from the Black River Hospital, an additional 8 persons in the first 72 hours post-hurricane. Madam Speaker, we attended to some 8,900 persons in makeshift A&Es. We had 3,000 patients in hospital during this period in the first 24 hours. And, Madam Speaker, we did so while we had to serve some 3,300 inpatients immediately after the hurricane. All this while some 3,000 workers in the zone were themselves victims of the storm and their family members, and therefore had to be tended to also. We coordinated the deployment of some 42 NGOs. In the first week, we deployed a full-fledged medical hospital in the Black River community, Madam Speaker. 3 other hospitals were deployed in the 2 weeks after. Madam Speaker, we deployed 177 public health inspectors to control the predictable outbreak of leptospirosis, and 1,100 vector workers, which prevented what many would have thought would have been the case, prevented the outbreak of the dengue virus. Madam Speaker, these are the facts. And it's a reality that we often overlook. I call on this House today and Jamaica to say thanks to the health team who responded. We are, Madam Speaker, better than most. And sometimes we don't accept or realize it. I want to say thanks personally as Minister on behalf of the government. Madam Speaker, we're building back stronger. We have 3 phases of rebuild. First phase is to restore, which has taken place. Second, to rehabilitate, then to reconstruct. The other 2 phases are work in progress. We have teams in the field doing critical assessment, engineering assessment of our buildings, and also, Madam Speaker, to determine a path going forward to build back even stronger. We are up to the task, Madam Speaker, this government, and we will deliver for the people of Jamaica in building back our infrastructure stronger. Madam Speaker, in the last year, 1.15 million patients were seen at hospitals, 1.596 million visits that is, to health centers. We have continued the trend of shifting visits more to health centers than to hospitals, which is a good thing. We did 44,000 diagnostic tests, 75,000 surgeries, and 770,000 Jamaicans benefited from drugs from the National Drug Serve pharmacies. All of this served by some 24,000 healthcare workers. The challenges persist, Madam Speaker, but most Jamaicans, most of the time, go to a health facility and they are properly served, Madam Speaker, despite those challenges. We will continue to build on this in order to overcome the challenges. Madam Speaker, I'm happy to announce that this financial year is the year, and I want to just allow me to raise my hand and say, thank you, Jesus, God is good. This is the year that the Cornwall Regional Hospital will be open to the people of Western Jamaica and to the public, Madam Speaker. Been a long journey. And the Lord knows why this government is still here, because I don't think the other persons would have known what to do with the challenge. It has been a significant challenge, but we are now on the final stretch. This is the year when the financial year, that is, when Western Child and Adolescent Hospital will be open. This is the year, this calendar year, when 3 of our major rebuild health centers, St. Jago, Old Harbour, and Greater Portmore, will be open. Madam Speaker, In total, those 3 health centers and 2 hospitals will see some 700,000 visits a year in a new environment, new diagnostic, new bed space, all in support of building back the infrastructure to support the people of Jamaica. Cornwall Regional Hospital will see 430 beds, ICU, 12 operating theaters, ICU and high dependency imaging, Western Child, 220 beds, other specializations, MRI, ICU, and others, Madam Speaker. We will see significant capacity being rolled out during this financial year, and it's long overdue, and I want to thank the people of Western Jamaica for their patience. The same could be said in St. Catherine with the 3 health centers. These health centers are not usual health centers. In Olaba, St. Jago, and in Portmore. These are going to see labs, pharmacy services, diagnostic equipment. Madam Speaker, we are unveiling this financial year the new look of health infrastructure thanks to this government and the leadership of Andrew Holness. And I have not yet spoken about Spanish Town Hospital, Madam Speaker. Mid-next year, the 6-story tower at Spanish Town, the new Spanish Town Hospital, will be unveiled with significant improvements, Madam Speaker, for the people of St. Catherine. I just want to say, Madam Speaker, in terms of health infrastructure, Andrew Holness is indeed the builder, supported by this government and the Cabinet of Jamaica. And we haven't mentioned UWI, KPH, and Bellevue, Madam Speaker. We will speak more to those, but those are all in the making as part of our overall healthcare bill. Madam Speaker, the truth is that health infrastructure tells a part of the story. It's not the whole story. And the truth is, with the health infrastructure will come diagnostics. And so the issues around MRIs and imaging will be accompanied with the opening of these facilities. I won't go there because of time limitations, but I want to mention 2 challenges we face, because we must be sincere about the issues that we have to confront in this phase. Human resources for health, Madam Speaker, is a major challenge. There are critical areas of specialization that we need to replace or to fill vacancies of. Oncology, pediatric, nephrology, psychiatry, burn unit, cardiology, Madam Speaker, just to name a few. Madam Speaker, we are taking some measures now to address that situation, the issue of human resources for health. We are training more specialist nurses. Over 100 are now in training to be deployed this year. The Barwick Memorial Development Scholarship would see some 48 nurses and 33 doctors filling posts this year. The diaspora recruitment continues. Interviews are now taking place. And over the last month, we have signed MOUs with India, Nigeria, and Ghana, which will see both collaboration in training, but also recruitment of those nationalities where needed to come to Jamaica. I want to just say boldly, even at the expense of courting controversy, the future of human resources for health for Jamaica to address the sick profile of our population is going to be multicultural, and it's going to have to be collaborative across borders, Madam Speaker, because even with the expansion of capacity, as we are doing with the expansion of the Kingston School of Nursing and Training Facility, Madam Speaker, the reality is the mobility of healthcare workers makes it very difficult, and the demand for our population makes it difficult. This is why, Madam Speaker, we are launching we have established an international recruitment unit. This has been approved by Cabinet and is set up to manage the cross-border arrangements to fill the vacancies that we have. The other challenge, Madam Speaker, is in infrastructure. It's one thing to build infrastructure. It's another thing to maintain infrastructure. One of the big challenges that we have faced as a country, which led to the collapse of Cornwall Regional Hospital, is that we have maintained the infrastructure we have built. It is penny wise and pound foolish. Madam Speaker, today I'm launching the Health Infrastructure Maintenance Fund and a $1 billion allocation to that fund in order to learn the lessons of the past and to ensure that the infrastructure we build out today will be maintained. Essentially, simply put, in the interest of time, This is a fund that will see us establishing an inventory management system to establish benchmark quality of all our infrastructure, group our infrastructure into clusters, provide servicing manuals for each piece of that infrastructure. We're focusing on mechanical, electrical, plumbing, air conditioning, and HVAC and elevator services. And we'll determine whether we service those routinely in-house or through some outsourcing. I want to use the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to say to service providers, the day of having extended service or being the sole supplier to support the maintenance of our health infrastructure without having inventory in stock, without having the personnel, they have to fly in from Europe. Those days are going to come to an end. There will be KPIs in place where if you want to work with health to maintain infrastructure, you must have the expertise and the equipment in order to do so. More will be said on this, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the NHF is the health insurance for the Jamaican people. Yes, there's work to be done, and I heard the opposition leader call for a national health insurance. Let me just say to him and to all concerned that this government has been more sensitive to the demands of Jamaicans when it comes to medication and healthcare support than any other government in history, Madam Speaker. In 2016, there are only 15 categories of illnesses represented by the NHF, meaning medication for Jamaicans through the NHF. Today, 10 years after the Andrew Holness administration, 28 categories of illnesses have been established, being supported by the National Health Fund, Madam Speaker. And the list is on the screen for you all, our education, Madam Speaker. It means that someone who couldn't get medication for prostate cancer or Parkinson's disease in 2016 can now get that medication free with an NHF card or attending to the public health system. The NHF is also one of the best run public bodies in the country, receiving corporate governance awards, Madam Speaker. I want to just recognize them, recognize the management, and I want to come back to the corporate governance and the accountability issues later on. Madam Speaker, I want to just close this section by saying there is no doubt that as it relates to health infrastructure, as it relates to medication, as it relates to human resources for health, over the last 10 years of this government, we have worked hard to deliver. And I think it's important that we recognize that and give support and recognition where it deserves. And it's not about me, it's about the people who are working in the system. And I want to pick them up with, of course, the guidance and support of this government over those years. Madam Speaker, I want to shift quickly now. I want to pivot, do a policy pivot, and there's a little theoretical run-up to the specifics, but I crave your indulgence and those listening to just listen a bit, because we're a new government, meaning a third term. We have done a lot in delivering infrastructure, still a lot more to be done, but there is still an issue that we have to confront, and there's no time like now than to confront that issue. And so, this policy pivot. This is a policy perspective, Madam Speaker, on family and community. Madam Speaker, a critical measurement of the quality of life is the happiness and wellness of individuals and families in communities. Decisions around life are normally driven by what we see, feel, experience, either through those we interact with at home, work, community, or social and other media. Our health centers, Madam Speaker, are at the epicenter of family and community. Public health has always built its critical outreach programs around the nexus of these social groups. From maternal health to aging, the prevention of communicable and non-communicable diseases. We have had many successes, Madam Speaker, the elimination of polio, from immunization to expansion of life expectancy. Those are positives that we must celebrate as a country. Madam Speaker, poverty, however, and inequality, environmental and lifestyle choices, cultures and subculture impacts health outcomes. Health actions must therefore begin early and incorporate seemingly unrelated clinical interventions. To do this, we must look at the enabling institutions that make these interventions possible and effective. I am referring here, and I want us to bear this terminology in mind, the social determinants of health. That's the pivot, and that's where I'm going, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the two most critical institutions to determine the social implications of health are the family and the community. The family that nurtures and forms healthy individuals who are able to contribute to society. The community that creates and sustains normative structures that not only fashion identity, but reinforces positive health decisions and practices. Now, some people may ask, Madam Speaker, what does this have to do with hospital, health center, doctors? Why are you going off on a tangent? Some may ask that. But if you reflect, Madam Speaker, the fact is that the reduction in the effectiveness of the nurturing role of the family has a direct relationship to the preventative strategies of the health system. From prenatal and postnatal care, vaccination coverage, childhood nutrition, sexual and reproductive health, menopause and elder care. The family is integral to the successful staging of any intervention aimed at mitigating the health risk along the life course. I contend, Madam Speaker, and I put it for your consideration here in this House, that it will be very possible to draw causation between the existing constructs of the Jamaican family and many of the issues that impact health outcome of the Jamaican population. Some of these issues include lower than expected vaccine coverage, childhood obesity, early initiation into sex, poor sexual practices, poor work-life balance, mental illness, as well as poor elderly care practices. These challenges, colleagues, exacerbate the economic realities of the Jamaican people and undermine the country's ability to meet our shared vision for the future. The community, Madam Speaker, is another facet of the Jamaican society that has been significantly changed over the years. Issues around technology, issues around collegiality or the lack thereof, the movement towards social isolation and inwardness undermines our ability to be what we often refer to as our brother's keeper. We don't care enough about each other, Madam Speaker, if we are to be honest with ourselves. We are not our brother's keeper. For whatever reason, the environment has made us essentially selfish, self-centered, and really it's just about us. There's no way, that's no way to build a community and to build a nation. This impacts health directly as we experience daily the many instances of trauma related to domestic violence, interfamily violence, or intercommunity violence. Again, what does this have to do with health centers, doctors, and nurses? We see this in the increase of the number of hospital-related social cases, abandonment, the lack of care for elderly and children who are abused by trusted adults and caregivers as symptomatic of a reduction in the level of social capital that were a hallmark of what we used to refer to as our Jamaicanness, Madam Speaker. Community and community-based values are today threatened and require a new approach. Madam Speaker, we must begin with the enabling environment that supports positive reinforcement of outcomes of our prevention strategy. This must be evidence-based and participatory. Today, I want to present a series of initiatives that will enable families and communities through consultation, research, and family formation and policy formation aimed at supporting a more family and community integrated approach to holistic healthcare. Madam Speaker, to begin with, we have collaborated with the University of the West Indies to do two pieces of research. One is around health center to determine the value and the perception of our health center in our communities. We have over 320 of those. Because our health centers really represent a stabilizing force within the community. I tell you, even the deviant avoid breaking into the health center because at some point, even through the deviant behavior, they need a doctor and a nurse to offer them some sort of care. So we can leverage that to place more emphasis on developing community. And we want to understand that a little more in the current dispensation. The second study, Madam Speaker, is the misinformation and disinformation, the impact of social media on health choices by the Jamaican population, especially on children under 16 years old, Madam Speaker. The intention, Madam Speaker, is to use this information to look at our policy pivot over the years to come and to essentially attempt to pitch the building of our community and society under this big tent to tackle issues of community and effective prevention strategies. In this regard, Madam Speaker, I'd like to introduce this House and the country to a $500 million community arranged response effort, or $500 million CARE fund. In this, the ministry will be launching this fund to support community projects linked to our strategies for NCD prevention, Madam Speaker, over the next 2 years. The fund will be managed by the ministry's Enabling Environment in Health and Client Services Division and will seek to work with community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, civil society groups to increase health-seeking behavior, improve and strengthen families to support vulnerable persons like the disabled and elderly, and promote prevention strategies for NCDs along the life stage of course. Madam Speaker, a call for proposal will be issued on June 15, 2026. And I want to just use the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to recognize a number of NGOs in the audience: Watchman Church Leadership Alliance, the Jamaica Family Planning Association, Circle of Jamaica, Jamaica Aid Support for Life, Ebenezer Home, Jamaica Cancer Society, Heart Foundation, Red Cross, Diabetes, Caribbean Institute for Health Research, the Jamaica Union of Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and the Jamaica Umbrella Group of Churches. Thank you very much for coming. And we invited them because we want them to participate in this community outreach under this by 2025, driven by users between the age of 25 and 34. While these platforms, Madam Speaker, have transformed communication, networking, and entrepreneurship, they have also introduced measurable social and psychological strain. Now, the studies are suggesting that among children 0 to 14, 64% report that social media negatively affects their mental health, while 47% of adolescents aged 15 to 19 report similar impact. And this is not unique to Jamaica. Across the Caribbean, we have seen studies around cyberbullying, sexting, emotional distress, suicidal ideation, reinforcing concerns that social media has evolved into a public health issue rather than just a communication tool. And if you look at countries around the world, many are taking action. Indonesia, Greece, Norway, in fact, the UK has championed an online safety act, now require platforms to monitor harmful content, enforce age verification, remove addictive features, and I could go on, Madam Speaker. Here in Jamaica, it's a free-for-all, Madam Speaker. We have research has emerged from 2025-26 to confirm, however, a strong link here in Jamaica between social media use, increasing anxiety, depression, and digital addiction, particularly among our young people. In fact, 36% of Jamaican content creators produce content involving physical altercation, 29% engage in aggressive online behavior, contributing to a broader cultural shift marked by increased vulgarity and a normalization of harmful content. And I must tell you, in this house, we encourage it at times. We go on some of these programs, we promote some of the toxicity that is being promulgated, the hate, the vitriol, and unknowingly, maybe, hopefully, we're doing harm not just to ourselves, but to those we try to provide leadership for. I'm calling on this House, Madam Speaker. The time has come for us to have a serious consideration around the unrestricted access to social media as it relates to our children in particular, Madam Speaker, because it is a problem. The research, as outlined earlier, Madam Speaker, we hope to guide a conversation and certainly to advocate for some changes in this regard. The second, Madam Speaker, is healthy aging. Healthy aging must involve family and community. You know, currently we have, according to the Mona Aging and Wellness Center led by Professor Elimaya Shearer, who is sitting in the gallery, we have approximately 375,000 Jamaicans 60 years and over. That number is expected to grow to 400,000 by 2030 and is growing at a faster rate than birth rate and other age categories. The truth is, we are experiencing a demographic shift, Madam Speaker, a demographic shift that is going to require significant more attention for persons who are 60 years and over, particularly the context in which most have at least one NCD and in many cases multiple lifestyle-related diseases. These are our aunts, our mothers, and indeed in this house, many of us, some of us, it's time to consider this as a serious issue. Madam Speaker, this year we'll be launching geriatric clinics in St. Anne and St. Catherine at a community and district health center. And the intention here is to build out a regime, a policy approach to dealing with those persons over 60 and the particular needs that they have. We'll be combining these efforts with the Ministry of Social Security, National Council for Senior Citizens, and local government and community organizations, Madam Speaker, as part of our intervention at community and family level. The third, Madam Speaker, is menopause and andropause and community support systems. Menopause, Madam Speaker, menopause typically occurs among women in their 40s and 50s. Approximately 240,000 women suffer or fall in this age cohort. And the symptoms are varied: hot flashes, fatigue, mood instability, vaginal dryness, and it can be worse. We have been silent on this issue. And these are our women, our very important affects almost 400,000 Jamaicans and their quality of life. We have to deal with this. The fourth, Madam Speaker, is training for home care for the older persons and disabled. Jamaica already relies on a significant but largely invisible care system for older persons and people living with disabilities at the family and community levels. These are called unpaid caregivers. These are our children, the aunts, the cousin, the neighbor, the church brother or sister. They are the ones who take care of the old person who is at home and are not paid. They do it. They are like the social conscience of family and community. Madam Speaker, the time has come to recognize them and to salute them. And this is not unique to Jamaica. Studies support this across the world. Studies from POW, IDB, and otherwise. This year, we'll commence a phased pilot of home-based long-term care that includes unpaid caregivers as part of the care team for older persons and persons with disabilities. During the last year, we trained some 148 community health aides. Professor Shearer will oversee a national training program for community caregivers on how to care for older persons and persons with disability. A task force will be established, including the Ministries of Labor and Social Security, local government, churches, community organizations, and aged care organizations, and their main function will be to identify persons for training, ensuring wide community participation. We have already started that dialogue. But, Madam Speaker, we must recognize our unpaid caregivers. They number in the thousands and hundreds of thousands, and give them an opportunity to understand how to treat a cousin who has autism, or a 75-year-old mother who has a stroke and don't know how to turn them. That's how we get social cases, because people just don't know how to cope. This is part of family and community which we must take in community early childhood centers, introducing universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds, establishing after-school care for primary schools within the work environment. The fourth category is reproductive health, strengthening infertility treatment access within the public health system, launching a national male reproductive health initiative, scaling antenatal education and improving postnatal medical health screening. The fifth, which is parenting education and communities, scaling evidence-based parenting programs through clinics and schools. Madam Speaker, this is not an announcement of policy, just to be clear, right? Policy is developed, ultimately approved at the level of cabinet. But I believe the time has come for a conversation at the level of communities and families. The consultation with the Minister of Labour and Social Security, we propose a multi-stakeholder national task force on fertility and responsible parenting, drawing membership from health, labour, finance, education, the private sector, academia, and civil society, and the staff around paternity issues in our country at this time, because it has implications for the quality of family and community, and also to ensure that there's greater harmony at that level, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the seventh one is period poverty and adolescent health. Period poverty is the inability to afford or access essential menstrual products, education, and sanitation facilities. It causes significant health risk, shame, and stigma, forcing many to use unsafe alternatives or to miss schoolwork. Key causes include high cost, lack of infrastructure, and systematic inequality. Globally, over 500 women lack access to menstrual facilities. And this is not just for Jamaica. In the US, it's 1 in 4. So it's a problem right across. Madam Speaker, we all must be concerned about period poverty among our young girls in schools. It's not just a hygiene issue, but a systemic barrier that keeps girls out of classroom, undermine their academic potential, and reinforce cycles of inequality. But let me just say this. Mental health cannot be solved by institutionalization. It starts in the families and in the communities. And if we don't sensitize the families and the communities to deal with symptoms of mental health and to accommodate, to support, to refer, to address mental health issues, we will never solve the problem. So this one is big in terms of community support. This year we'll be doing a number of things. The National Mental Health Policy will be promulgated. We're going to be training 200 laypersons as part of problem management providers within communities. These are the opinion leaders, members of the church, members of civil society. They must at least be able to recognize and to listen and to refer, as well as 145 psychiatric nursing assistants will be trained this year, and 50 guidance counselors under the school mental health literacy program, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, mental health challenges starts in the home and the communities. We have to start there to address the problem, Madam Speaker. The final one, Madam Speaker, the 10 of the social determinants of health is around substance abuse and community support. The National Drug Prevalence Survey shows that the substances most used in Jamaica are alcohol, cannabis, and tobacco. Among this, alcohol remains by far the most dominant. In fact, I said to the National Council on Drug Abuse recently, 2 weeks ago, I said, you probably need to change your name. I'm told I have 15 more minutes. Thank you. I said, we probably need to change your name because Jamaica really doesn't have a cocaine problem of such. Jamaica has an abuse of legal substances problem. And many of them are right on our kitchen table or in our fridge. And they are addictive. And they create the obesity that creates the hypertension and the diabetes. And to the extent that we abuse them, it's a problem. So we're going to be looking at these new substances that are being abused. Some of them are psychoactive substances like Molly and ecstasy and so on, especially among young adults. But we intend to widen that conversation. As a result, Madam Speaker, there are a couple of areas I want to specify we will intervene on. One of them is energy drinks and alcohol consumption. Everybody know what it's called. It's called special. Special on the street, right? Everybody drinking a special now. Now, let me give you the science of special. Energy drinks are non-alcoholic beverages containing high levels of stimulant, primarily caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant and alcohol is a depressant. Caffeine masks the feeling of being drunk and encourages binge drinking, higher blood alcohol concentration. When you mix alcohol with energy drink, you mask intoxication, encouraging heavier and more prolonged drinking while amplifying the risky behavior. And there are many risky behaviors. I tell you, I was in the beautiful parish of Westmoreland. And I was at a little place having a little water. Yes, a little water. And talking to some guys, and one of the guys said to the boss, "You saved my life." I said, "Really, what happened?" He said, "Well, I had an experience," and his friend started to tell me the story. So he had this young lady he had to go meet. And, you know, he has a performance matrix. Let me put it no more that no weird than that. And that performance matrix involves him purchasing two, not ecstasy tablet, two performance tablets. Yes, two performance tablets, and drink a bottle of energy drink with a pure white rum. I'm not calling any brand name, sir. You call it. I'm not calling it. And after he developed the performance matrix, he jumped on his bike to ride to the location. He ended up in a wall and spent 1 month in the hospital at Sablamar Hospital. Now let me give you another statistic that tells us that unless we intervene in the community, we have a problem. The last time I toured Sablamar Hospital, 80% of the main surgical ward were occupied by young men riding bikes without helmets. and they occupy the accident and emergency, the surgical wards, it is a real challenge. And 90% of them are intoxicated for whatever reason or whatever motivation. Madam Speaker, we have to intervene. So we are going to be doing a national rapid situation assessment as it relates to the impact of energy drink and alcohol. We're also going to be launching Operation Lighthouse, 50 communities island-wide for substance misuse prevention. We're going to be tackling vaping or anti-vaping, particularly in our schools. Madam Speaker, the vaping materials look like pens and pencils. And we are going to be targeting the suppliers because the National Council on Drug Abuse has the authority to deal with those who are selling vaping materials to underage. Madam Speaker, today I have given you what I classify as a policy pivot towards a more social, community, family determinants of health. I am encouraging society, NGOs, all concerned, join us in health and as a government. Let us take back our communities. Let us promulgate good family values within our society so that we can build a better and more productive society where we can be our brother's keeper as we used to be. That is the real Jamaicanness, Madam Speaker, and I want to promulgate that and advance that over the next year or two. Madam Speaker, I turn now to an accountability framework quickly. Madam Speaker, over the past several months, the Ministry of Health and Wellness and its agencies have been the subject of extensive assessment. The most common one being or most talked about, the Auditor General's report at the UHWI. These reviews have revealed shortcomings in administrative performance and accountability that must now be addressed with urgency and discipline. The findings have prompted a focused policy response in three critical areas: governance and oversight, financial and procurement accountability, and capacity and performance management across the health portfolio. Madam Speaker, we are fully mindful of the constitutional separation between policy, administration, and operation, and the statutory role of boards under the PBMA Act. For the next 12 to 18 months, Madam Speaker, we will be moving to establish internal systems to address a number of the areas that we think are where we have shortcomings. Some are rules that are already in place but need to be enforced, but we will also be imposing some timelines and some appropriate level of sanctions for non-compliance. Financial accountability, Madam Speaker. All regional health authorities will be required to bring their financial statements and reports tabled in Parliament fully up to date within the next 12 months. Boards and regional directors will be held directly accountable for delivery. Health professional councils, many of which are seriously non-compliant, will be required to submit action plans to regularize their financial reporting and to clear at least 10% of their outstanding backlog within the same period. The ministry itself is expected to be current with its appropriations account in compliance with the Financial Administration and Audit Act, and the Permanent Secretary and the relevant central authorities have been mandated to ensure that that takes place within that time. In terms of procurement reform, the over-reliance on direct contracting presents a significant governance risk. Accordingly, from Monday, June 1, 2026, and for a period of 12 months, all direct contracting above statutory threshold, except in the case of the National Health Fund, will require independent validation. Boards will be required to approve certified procurement plans. No financial commitment will be supported outside of the approved plans, and a zero-tolerance approach will be enforced for non-compliance with the Government of Jamaica e-procurement platform and immediate consequences for breaches. In terms of statutory declarations, Madam Speaker, the misuse of income tax, education tax, and NHT deductions to fund operations is unlawful and unacceptable. From Monday, June 1, 2026, a zero-tolerance approach will apply. Executives who authorize or facilitate such breaches will face disciplinary action, including statutory surcharges where applicable, while legacy arrears will be addressed to new statutory liabilities will be permitted. We cannot have people having their monies deducted and not paying over where it needs to be paid over, Madam Speaker. Performance and capacity. All agencies will transition fully to the performance management and appraisal system, PMAS, within 12 months, and at least 70% of organizational functions assessed under PMAS. Same time, a coordinated recruitment initiative I've asked the regions to hire where they have posts because part of the excuse of not getting things done is that they don't have enough people. So there's a timeline on this, 75% of vacancies to be filled within 12 months. Governance and oversight, Madam Speaker, and this now involves some of the university issues, a comprehensive legislation review of the health governance framework, including the Health Services Act and the UHWI Act will be undertaken this year, consistent with the Mitchell Report and Vision for Health 2030. From Monday, June 1, 2026, all internal audit units will submit reports directly to the ministry. This will inform my quarterly oversight meetings with board chairpersons with persistent non-compliance attracting decisive action. This one is important, service delivery and public trust. We have to improve the compassion within our health institutions, how we administer care. Accountability has no meaning if it is not reflected in the patient experience. Therefore, a client-centered, rights-based approach to service delivery is being advanced, supported by measurable services, standards, and satisfaction metrics, and reinforced by transparent public reporting. Madam Speaker, we have established this accountability framework internally. I've met with all the regions, all the board chair, all our public bodies. I've explained it to them, and we intend to move swiftly to ensure that we are compliant as outlined in the presentation. Madam Speaker, I want to close by looking at our legislative agenda. Very important. This year, the ministry will pursue several matters in the legislative agenda, including tobacco, food and drug, and nurse and midwives act. Tobacco control bill we expect to be tabled within the next month. This has gone to cabinet. We had a joint select committee. I thank those who have played a role, but that is going to happen momentarily. Food and drug amendment bill seeks to regulate natural health products, including nutraceuticals under the Food and Drug Act. The amendment bill and regulations are on track for the ministry to proceed with legislative committee this 26-27. Amendment to the Nurses and Midwives Act. Madam Speaker, this is very important. We're well advanced, and this year we intend to come to the Parliament with the Nurses and Midwives Act to give our advanced nursing practitioners more authority. They are the ones who man some of the most remote health centers. If they have to administer a vaccine or write a prescription within limitations, we expect that this year will be the case. Funeral homes regulations, Madam Speaker, we will take to Parliament this year to address the many funeral homes that are unregulated and pose a health risk that is in the final stages. And finally, I want to announce that we will shortly be announcing a committee to review the Public Health Act. I must tell you, I was a little disappointed when COVID struck, and as a health emergency, we could not use the Public Health Act to guide the response, because that's what the Public Health Act should do, but because of shortcomings. So this year, Madam Speaker, we intend to begin a process, which I believe would take about 2 years, to take the most comprehensive piece of legislation guiding health, the Public Health Act, and review that. And we intend to engage a wide cross-section of society in that regard, including members of the opposition, because this is necessary, given all the other advancement that we are making as it relates to public health. Madam Speaker, I apologize in advance for rushing the presentation. I have 3 minutes to go, so I didn't do too badly, House Leader and Madam Speaker. And thank you for helping me by greeting all my colleagues so that I did not have to do so. But since I have 2 minutes, I want to greet the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. I want to greet my Minister of State, who has been amazing. Can you just give her a round of applause, please? She's a champion. She's a champion. She worked hard. And I tell you, don't bother contest her in that seat down in Central, because she's here to stay. And she's a policy maker. I want to recognize my constituents. I know my councillors are here, so many of them, members of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, PSCMO, members of our PAHO and all the other groups, the NGOs that are here. I can't call all the names, but I have the 2 minutes, so I want to just recognize them because I didn't take the charge. Today is International Nurses Day. And I want to just big up all our nurses. Sorry I couldn't go to the event. Madam Speaker, in keeping with what we do every year, because we know time is limited, we publish limited copies, a lot of information, because we're a transparent government and a transparent ministry. And we want you to have the information. But it's limited, but it will be on the website. So we have vitals. We're looking at sodium and sodium impact, salt, some people call it. We have a glance at tobacco use in Jamaica. We have sweetened beverages consumption in Jamaica, the facts. Jamaica's population health report, 2019 to 2024. Very interesting reading around the decline in our population and birth rate and some of the reasons. Also have a glance at alcohol use in Jamaica. And I believe we have a ministry paper that speaks to all the areas I have not mentioned, because we are a big ministry, as well as our health system strengthening. And just to be totally transparent again, we have tabled a copy of the report of the University Hospital of the West Indies, institutional review for all who wants to read and understand what's happening. Madam Speaker, yes, I said that. Madam Speaker, I really want to take the last few seconds to say to the Prime Minister, thank you, sir, for the confidence you have reposed in me over the last 10 years. I am not perfect, and we make mistakes. We're human. What I will tell you, I have never not engaged anyone who has a criticism, and I do try to ensure that where those criticisms are constructive, I will take them on board. Health is not a partisan issue, and not everything we must try to wring political advantage out of. We must recognize, as they say, today for me, tomorrow for you. And no matter who you are, health and access to health should be a universal principle. And that's how we see it, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with these announcements, I hope on behalf of the government and all healthcare workers that our mission over the next term is clear. Working together for better families, for better communities, collaboratively so. And of course, ultimately, for better health, because that's where it all starts. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. God bless Jamaica, land we love. Y'all get up in there. Turn it up. It's free. It's free. I'm going now.
Right. It's CM General Manager.
Madam Speaker, let us thank the Minister of Health. Definitely, when you see all the infrastructure work that's happening in health in Jamaica, there will be no doubt that this Minister of Health has left an indelible mark. We will now turn to the member from St. Andrew Western for his contribution to the sectorial debate.
In the interest of equity and time, I would like to make special welcome the students here in support of the presentation of the member from St. Andrew Western, the students from Edith Dalton James High School. Welcome to the houses. I also see Senator Keisha Anderson. I'm sure she's also here in support of the member for his sectoral presentation. Welcome to the houses. Members, please make welcome the member from St. Andrew Western, who will now make his presentation to the sectoral debate.
Madam Speaker, permission to speak from a seat other than my own. Permission to speak.
Permission granted.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise at the beginning of my 7th term in this honorable House to make my presentation in the sectoral debate as opposition spokesman on industry, trade, and global logistics. No one can achieve this milestone alone, Madam Speaker. The persons of this journey to be thanked are too numerous to mention, and I don't have the time that the speaker before me does. But I begin by thanking my God, from whom all blessings flow. Then I would thank my family, broadly, Madam Speaker. First of all, my direct family, my daughter, Nile, who is today sitting her CXC exams, and her mother, who I understand choose to be near her today. I want to recognize my other family, both politically in the political party and in the House as a whole, my colleagues on both sides of the House, of the aisle. I thank my party leader, my golden leader of opposition, for giving me the opportunity to shepherd this portfolio once again. Madam Speaker, I thank everybody, my councillors who are here and my constituents who are here, but I know they understand in the interest of time, I need to move on. But before I do so, I want to especially thank Ms. Keisha Anderson, my assist, who made a special effort to be here this afternoon. So thank you, Keisha, for being here. Madam Speaker, there are moments in the life of a nation that demand more than the management of the present. They demand vision, courage, and leadership, willing to confront the future honestly while positioning a country to benefit from what is coming next. This, Madam Speaker, is one of those moments. Jamaica stands at a decisive turning point in global economic history. The architecture of international trade and investment is being redesigned at an extraordinary pace. Supply chains that took decades to build are now being dismantled and redrawn. Entire industries are relocating. New manufacturing corridors are emerging, and strategic alliances are being redefined. The decoupling of the world's two largest economies, the reshaping of global commerce, and creating opportunities that will either be claimed within a decade or lost for generations. And of course, we here in Jamaica have critical infrastructure and economy to reconstruct in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. At one extreme, Madam Speaker, countries are retreating into isolationism, turning inward and threatening the very fabric of global trade, as we once understood it. At the other, there remains hope for stable, rules-based systems grounded in cooperation, predictability, and mutual benefit. The war in Iran and growing instability across parts of the Middle East have only intensified global uncertainty and deepened the urgency surrounding economic security and supply chain resilience. But let us be honest with ourselves, Madam Speaker. The world is not returning to what it was. What is emerging instead is a more fragmented and competitive global economy, reorganizing into powerful regional blocs, where countries are aggressively positioning themselves to secure supply chains, attract investment, dominate strategic industries, and strengthen regional influence. Other nations, some smaller than Jamaica and with fewer natural advantages, have already made strategic decisions about where they intend to compete. Costa Rica did so in biotechnology and medical devices. Panama did so in logistics and financial services sectors. The Dominican Republic is doing so now in nearshoring and light manufacturing. They are not waiting for certainty or a settled world order. They are moving with urgency because they understand that nations positioning themselves early will shape the next era of prosperity, while those that hesitate will spend the next generation watching. The question before us today is simple. Where is Jamaica positioning? Where is Jamaica positioning itself within this new global reality? Madam Speaker, Jamaica possesses the geographic location, the human capital, the English-speaking workforce, and the proximity to some of the largest consumer markets on earth. We sit astride one of the busiest shipping corridors in the world. We possess a globally recognized cultural influence. We have entrepreneurial people, strategic assets, and enormous untapped potential. But potential without strategy is merely an unrealized opportunity. This is the central indictment of this budget, and it is the central challenge I place before this honorable House today. This government, Madam Speaker, has become very comfortable celebrating numbers. It celebrates fiscal discipline. It celebrates stability. It celebrates the growth of Jamaica's net international reserves. And while those things matter, and while macroeconomic discipline is necessary, the Jamaican people are not living inside spreadsheets. They are living in communities where food and fuel prices continue to rise, where wages struggle to keep pace with the cost of living, and where opportunities for upward mobility feel increasingly out of reach. Young professionals are beginning to question whether Jamaica still offers them a future worth investing in. And too many families are struggling simply to maintain stability in their daily lives. And so the question before this honorable House is not merely whether the government can balance accounts. The real question is whether the economy is producing prosperity that people can actually feel in their lives. Jamaicans cannot eat fiscal credibility. They cannot pay mortgages with macroeconomic statistics. And they cannot build businesses from press releases. The Jamaican people deserve more than mere stability management. They deserve a serious national growth strategy. Capable of producing resilience, opportunity, productivity, and long-term prosperity. Madam Speaker, many of us are familiar with the business parable, "Who moved my cheese?" Its lesson is simple, but profound. Change is inevitable, and those who fail to adapt will inevitably be left behind. Today, as we continue this sectoral debate on the 26-27 budget, I ask this government a very simple question. You clearly see that the cheese has moved. So where is the strategy to find it? Where is the strategy to find the cheese? On this side of the House, we are fair in our assessment. The fiscal consolidation undertaken over the last decade has been substantial. Debt to GDP ratios have declined. Primary surpluses have been sustained, inflation management has improved. Macroeconomic stability has been real and hard won. Both administrations deserve measured credit for maintaining that discipline because the sacrifices required to achieve it were significant and felt by the Jamaican people. But stability, Madam Speaker, is not development. Stability is simply the foundation on which development must be built. A stable foundation only matters if something transformative is eventually constructed upon it. And after 10 years, the level of structural transformation Jamaica requires has simply not materialized. The evidence is all around us, Madam Speaker. Manufacturing's contribution to GDP has not significantly expanded. Value-added exports have not meaningfully grown. The trade deficit has ballooned. We remain heavily dependent on tourism, bauxite, and remittances, the same pillars supporting the economy a generation ago. The BPO sector, once heralded as a major source of middle-class opportunity and employment growth, has plateaued and now faces an existential threat from automation and artificial intelligence, a threat this budget barely acknowledges. The logistic hub remains more an aspiration than implementation. Vision 2030, now beyond its midpoint, has seen key structural targets quietly deferred, delayed, and abandoned altogether. Madam Speaker, let us speak honestly about this budget itself. What the Minister of Finance delivered was essentially a hurricane recovery report presented as a growth budget. While we acknowledge the devastating impact of Hurricane Melissa, $12.2 billion in losses, US dollars, nearly 57% of GDP, lives disrupted and livelihood destroyed, acknowledging the crisis is not the same as articulating a strategy for transformation. The Jamaican people deserve more than crisis management. They deserve a coherent plan for growth and national advancement. And the pressures facing ordinary Jamaicans continue to intensify. When oil is trading at nearly US $100 a barrel, while the budget was built on the assumption of US $60 per barrel, someone will pay that difference. It will not be the minister seated on the government benches. It will be the single mother filling her gas tank. It will be the farmer trying to operate his irrigation pump. It will be the small manufacturer watching electricity costs consume already narrow profit margins. These are the realities confronting Jamaicans every day, realities that cannot be solved by macroeconomic talking points alone. Then we come to MSMEs, the small businesses employing the majority of working Jamaicans. Once again, we heard recycled commitments, verified supplier lists, simplified registration systems, procurement set-asides. We have heard these promises repeatedly over the years. The government may be inclined to point to NARA and FAST as the solution, but those are hoped-for delivery mechanisms, not a comprehensive national strategy. And the benefits of NARA and FAST for businesses investing less than US 15 million are highly questionable. Madam Speaker, 1 or 2% growth after a natural disaster is not transformation. It is survival. It is survival. Jamaica deserves more than endurance. It deserves direction. Discipline without direction ultimately becomes endurance without destination. And the Jamaican people, discipline without direction ultimately becomes endurance without destination. And the Jamaican people have endured long enough without seeing the level of transformation their sacrifices were supposed to produce. Madam Speaker, Jamaica has for decades functioned primarily as a trading economy rather than a productive one. We import heavily, distribute locally, and export far too little beyond raw materials and services. This did not happen accidentally. It emerged from deliberate policy choices that consistently favored those who trade over those who produce, those who import over those who manufacture, and those who distribute over those who build. The barriers facing manufacturing are not simply regulatory. They are structural. Energy costs remain among the highest in the region. Trade policies continue to favor import dependency over domestic production. Industrial clustering necessary for achieving scale and competitiveness remains underdeveloped. Bureaucratic delays continue to frustrate productive investment. Access to affordable trade financing remains limited. The result is an economy that protects entrenched commercial interests while linking productive expansion and constraining the ambitions of manufacturers, exporters, and entrepreneurs who want to build and scale within Jamaica and the region. While in opposition, Madam Speaker, the opposition sought to change this trajectory through the Logistic Hub strategy, a framework designed to transform Jamaica into a globally competitive logistics and production center. It was not merely a slogan. It was intended as a comprehensive economic transformation strategy, linking ports, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, technology, and global trade into a unified framework capable of positioning Jamaica as a major regional player in the future economy. Yet, after 10 years, implementation has stalled. According to the World Bank's Logistic Performance Index, Jamaica now ranks